Our next generation portable is officially named PlayStation Vita.
Vita does indeed mean life, and with a solid January and what looks to be an even better February with quite a few releases which we'll get into later, there's still some life in the old dog yet. Be sure to keep watching for a little giveaway I've got planned later in the video, but as usual, let's first get to the news. I wonder if we'll get any messianic surprises in the mailbox this month. So let's try open it. Come on. Oh, phew. Well, looks like it's back to business as usual from here on out. Like any other mythical fat man in a suit, it seems Jesus Jim graces us with his presence just one time a year. A fact I'm sure even his own children can attest to. So, with all that news out of the way, let's get to the games I've been playing this month on the PlayStation Vita. First up is a remake of quite an old game, and that's Oddworld New and Tasty. This is an odd genre you don't really see these days. It's a platformer, but back in the 90s with games like Flashback and Another World, they created at the time what was called cinematic platformers, because it was just a platformer with lots more frames of animation, so it created a cinematic look for the time. These days we won't really see it as that. What I see them as today is a very deliberate platformer, and it's a genre which has pretty much died. No one does them anymore, which is a bit strange. And the Oddworld games continued that same mechanic with Abe's Odyssey, which New and Tasty is a remake of. Whilst the game is exactly the same, it just plays exactly the same as the original PlayStation 1. It's a fresh coat of paint and it plays pretty well on the Vita. It was obviously meant to be a PS4 game and a PS3 I think. The Vita port runs very well. It's a little blurry, and because of that there's small elements in the game that are hard to see because there's a lot of switches and text elements that are in the background that kind of blend in because the textures aren't that sharp, so you'll end up getting lost a lot in smoke and stuff like that, so you'd probably end up looking up YouTube videos to figure out where the switch exactly is because it's hard to see on the small screen. The only little bit of a slowdown I noticed was when there was a lot of enemies on the screen, but the game itself, if you played the original, it plays exactly the same as that. It's a fun game. You end up dying a lot just from the mechanics because you'll end up jumping when you didn't mean to jump. The mechanics are very deliberate. It's not your typical Mario platformer or something like that. It requires a lot of thinking to complete the puzzles and save your little friends from getting eaten. There is multiple endings depending on how many of the Madokins, I think they're called, of how many of them you save, and you get a different ending depending on how many. There was originally a sequel called Abe's Exodus on the PlayStation 1, and they were going to remake that game as Soulstorm, but I'm not sure what's going on with it because it has been in development for a long time. But obviously, we're very unlikely to see it if it does come out on the Vita. But yeah, if you were a fan of this game back on the PlayStation 1, it's very faithful to that game. If you're curious about this particular take on the platforming genre, then I'd probably recommend it as well, because it's a very different experience than a traditional platformer. But if you easily get frustrated, then I'd probably stay away from it because you'll just likely get frustrated from dying a lot. Now, last month I mentioned one or two Ratalaika games that might be coming out. I didn't know at the time because Ratalaika themselves didn't know which games were coming out, but one of them was Red Bow. This is an odd little game. It's very short. It looks like a traditional RPG game from the look of it, but it's actually an adventure horror title where you play as a little girl who is stuck in limbo. The goal is to explore the environment and talk to the person's current predicament that you're in, because each scenario in the game is a different person's purgatory, shall we say, and it's up to you whether we want to help them come to terms with their plight or you can make it worse, and as you complete each one you get sent to the next purgatory. How you do over all the scenarios, I believe it was three or four, that also gives you a different ending. The game is fairly short, you'll probably complete within 30-40 minutes, but it's quite an interesting experience. Depending on the price, I would recommend it if you get it very cheap. And then there was also another horror game. I mean, January of all months to have horror games is a bit weird, but last month I also mentioned a mystery game from East Asia Soft, and that was revealed to be without escape. Like Red Bow, this is an adventure game, but unlike Red Bow, this is far more traditional. I was puzzled at first of like what methods they were using, because the game looks too good graphically to be on the Vita. So I assumed it was all still backgrounds, so it's like a highly rendered background that looks closer to a photorealism. But then suddenly things start moving to show you that it's a 3D game. So I was puzzled like what techniques they were using. So I assume it's an FMV of a 3D game that they've like pre-rendered. But the actual game itself is very creepy. There's similar vibes to something like Gone Home, where you're trapped in a house in your room, you wake up in a room and things aren't quite right. And slowly the house descends into madness with blood all over the walls and bodies everywhere. So gameplay wise, it's all a point and click adventure type of thing. It's pretty straightforward, you can't really get lost or anything, but a lot of the puzzles are quite obtuse and you might need to search some things here and there. And this game also has multiple endings. I believe when I completed it there were 6 available endings. Obviously I didn't find them all, but maybe you will. And the final game, another Ratalaika game, and that's a sequel to a game I talked about I think at last episode or maybe an episode before it, and that's Foxyland 2. Now, if you recall, I didn't exactly give glowing reviews of Foxyland. I said it was basically a test demo, and I'd hoped Foxyland 2 rectified that, and thankfully it did. Foxyland 2 is an actual game, so we can say that about the sequel at least. There's some mechanics that are still a little bit dodgy. Things like the wall jumping is a little bit off, and your Foxy character sticks to ladders and stuff like that too frequently. Coupled with the one-hit kill mechanic within the game, it can create some frustrating moments. But I was pleasantly surprised by Foxyland 2. It's a very enjoyable game. There's quite a lot of levels and an actual story with some quirky little things happening, and lots of Easter eggs as well from developers and things like that. I was quite surprised with Foxyland 2 of how much more improved the sequel was to the original. So if you're looking for a little platformer, I would recommend Foxyland 2, and because it's a Ratalaika game as well, the platinum is quite easy. I mean, I think I only completed half of it before I got the platinum. So that's all I've been playing this month. So let's get into what's coming out in the month of February 2020. Now I do have quite a few confirmed releases coming out. The first couple may already be out depending on your region. And first up is Milo's Quest. The young pupper Milo is enjoying his time in the park and sees a delicious bone to chew on. The bone is cursed and sets free the evil king Old Skull. Now it's up to Milo to go on an adventure to stop the curse. Choose from 3 difficulty levels for your adventure. You can even change up the kind of experience you want by focusing only on puzzles or combat. Pick up items and useful tools on your quest to take on ghosts and solve block puzzles to stop the evil king Old Skull. This looks like a classic Zelda-like type of game. I'll be sure to check it out and get back to you next month on how it is. And next up, another game that might already be out depending on your region, and that's Balthazar's Dreams. Visit a wonderfully peculiar dog's dream in an heroic attempt to save his owner in this beautiful pixel art puzzle platformer. Balthazar dreams of strange and mysterious lands, filled with canine wonders. With a loud bark, Balthazar embarks on a quest to save his owner, venturing through the dreamscape with love and determination only a dog can possess. Now this next one actually already came out a year or 2 ago in the US, but it's a new release for Europe, and that's Atari Flashback Classics. The most comprehensive collection of arcade and home console classics comes to the PlayStation Vita, packed with 150 all-time favourites, rare gems and unique homebrews. Atari Flashback Classics is designed to take advantage of the PlayStation Vita console's special controls and functionality to bring new life to these iconic Atari games. Not sure why it took so long for this game to come to Europe, but it eventually has. There's always hope. Now this next game, I'm not quite sure when it's coming out in February, I just know it is confirmed for February, and that's Just a Phrase from Lightwood Games. Fill in the blanks with this Hangman style word game. Combine sound-alike variations on these well-known phrases for a word twist. This looks like an interesting puzzle game, and Chris from Lightwood actually sent me a code, so I'll be sure to let you know next month how the game turns out. Now the next 2 releases are mystery games. I know the confirmed date and what type of game they are, but I just don't know the titles. They're both being published by Sometimes You. On the 26th of February we've got a multi-platform adventure game, and on the 28th of February we've got another multi-platformer. This one's a classic platform title, so if you've got any clue what these two games might be, let me know in the comments below. There's also likely going to be a Ratalaika game or two in the month, they just haven't got back to me yet at the time of making the video. Now along with those digital releases, East Asia Soft also announced two physical releases up for pre-order this month. The first is the Foxyland Double Pack. Both titles I've actually talked about in this video and the previous one. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend the first Foxyland game, but the second one is actually quite good. The next physical release is the Kid Trip and Miles and Kilo Double Pack. Now these two games are very good, and I would highly recommend anyone purchase this to play through both titles. Very addictive games. And so that's it. That's all the games I know releasing in February 2020. But before we go, a little giveaway, and this is for any European PlayStation Vita or PlayStation 4 owners out there. I actually got a code for Factotum 90. This is a game I talked about a few videos back. It's a 3D puzzle platformer from Tax Games. And if you want to be in with a chance to win the code, just let me know in the comments below what was the first PlayStation Vita game you ever played. So let me know in the comments below and I'll pick a random winner. But just remember, this is an EU code, so you will need an EU account to redeem it. Well, that's it for the month. Be sure to let me know what games you've been playing for the month and if any of the upcoming games interest you. And as always, Vita means life.